Poised for Exit is a show for business owners who want to achieve a successful exit based on their own terms. Your business exit will likely be the biggest financial transaction of your life, and for most, you'll have one shot at doing it right. The topics and guests we feature and the stories they share will provide valuable ideas and strategies to improve operations and grow enterprise value so you can achieve the best possible exit outcome. Now here's your host, award-winning certified exit planning advisor, Julie Keys.
Welcome everyone to the Poised for Exit podcast show. Our guest in this episode is a female founder and CEO of a marketing and PR firm who I've known for many years. I'm super excited to have her share her story, but we're going to hear from our show sponsors. So stay with us.
Are you a business owner getting ready to transition? If so, I recommend True North Mergers and Acquisitions as your confidential strategic partner. They understand your business sale isn't just about one buyer and the price, but what you net that counts. In other words, what you get to keep. When you're ready for a higher level of representation that delivers consistent results, contact True North M&A to do the heavy lifting of selling your business. Learn more at tnma.com. That's tnma.com.
Exiting your business is a big deal, both financially and emotionally. I'm John Marquet, certified exit planning advisor with TrustPoint. We help business owners transition smoothly on their terms. Our focus is on maximizing value, minimizing stress, and giving you confidence in what's next. Whether you're selling or passing the torch, we make the process seamless. Start planning today at trustpointinc.com. That's trustpointinc.com.
For business owners, it can be overwhelming to start planning a transition or exit strategy, but it's so important to avoid unwanted outcomes and unexpected tax bills. The CPAs at JAK, John A. Knutson & Company, can guide you and help make sense of the numbers. Our firm was established over 90 years ago, and we've assisted countless companies with ownership transitions. Leaving your business is a process that takes time. So contact us today to discuss your situation. Visit our website at jakcpa.com. That's jakcpa.com.
My name is Todd Crow, and I'm the president of the Twin Cities Exit Planning Chapter. If you're a business owner and advisor and want to learn more about the world of exit planning, you're invited to visit the Twin Cities chapter of the Exit Planning Institute. You can expect top-level education delivered by subject matter experts at every monthly meeting. Grow your network and draw from the learning that could be a game changer for your business or your practice. There's no pressure to become a member, so come and see what the buzz is all about. Our meetings are held the second Wednesday of the month, 7:30 to 9 a.m. See the show notes for more information and registration links.
Hello, Poised for Exit listeners. We are here today with Cindy Leines, who is the founder and CEO of CEL Marketing and PR Design. Cindy, welcome to Poised for Exit.
Thank you, Julie. It's fabulous to be here and fun to follow you on Poised for Exit.
Thank you. As I said in the show opener, we've known each other for a long time. I don't know what took me so long to get you on the show. I think I said that to one of my previous guests. It's like, there's just so many cool people in my network like you. And there's only so many shows I can record, but you're finally here. So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And honored to be here. Yeah. Honored to be here. Great discussions.
For sure. So I like to start the show with my guests just kind of sharing a little bit about themselves and how they got started. Especially women entrepreneurs. I don't get to feature as many as I would like. And, you know, you started this company by yourself and now you've built it into this super successful business all these years later. So maybe just share with us how that came to be, why you chose marketing, whatever you'd like to share. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Julie. And I was thinking, but this is a great question. I was thinking I really didn't choose marketing. It kind of chose me in the process of evolution. And if I go back to really in the beginning to looking at, I grew up on a farm. My parents started with nothing and said, if this farm ever will get out of debt and our investment for it will be maybe not to our kids, hopefully to our grandkids. And I thought, isn't that amazing? I mean, my parents were older. I was the bottom of 6 children and there's 20 years between my brother and me. So I look back at that and think that spoke deeply to me more than I really knew growing up. And both the sacrifices and the pleasures, it was a lifestyle. And so that was an important piece of me. And as the youngest child of 6, I learned a lot, as you can imagine.
Sure.
And then what kinds, and I look back at that, and that really set the stage and of how we live and what my values were. And it was about community. It was about you believe in yourself. And I look back and think of all the opportunities that I had no idea that's what they were teaching me. I'm not even sure they did or my siblings did.
Yeah.
But it was to trust in yourself. And it's more about we and less about me. And that has really was the base of where I started. And I'd like to share one bull story in that we raised cattle.
Sure.
And so I think back and go, I honestly don't think I would have let my kids do this, or I don't know that I would let my grandkids. But we had, at that time we had Angus cattle, and
Sure.
we were raising beef cattle, and we would show at various livestock shows that we would go to. My brother, who remembers 20 years older than me, and so I was probably 14, and he would have been about 34. And they had a big 3,000 plus pound bull at this that we were going to show. Nobody had told me I was supposed to show him. I just assumed it was my brother and our colleagues. And all of a sudden, my brother Alan looks at me and he goes, well, Cindy, you can show this. And I'd shown, other smaller steers and cattle.
Sure.
And I looked at him and I said, are you kidding? And he goes, no, you can do this. And I said, really? And this bull was big and over 3,000 pounds. And he had a nose in his ring, which we never put nose in the rings unless they were a little antsy.
Sure.
And he said, yeah, just take it. I'll be right by you. Yeah, right. He's standing at the edge. And I look around and I see, okay, I can do this, I guess. He said, well, the bull will look bigger when you're with him. I'm like, well, great.
Right.
And so I did it. And so I did. I led this bull. I have never been so scared in my life, but I thought, my brother thinks I can do it. Nobody's else saying I can't. I might as well do it. And so I went out there, and I won't ever forget the feeling of going out there and going, please, please do not take off on me. Long story short, we actually did win and got the grand champion. But more importantly, I felt like I won. In hindsight, it was about trusting. It was about saying, you can do this. And it's about, I'll be here. There were parameters. I mean, there were people around. So there were parameters. And I think that is really, in hindsight, very much about how you run a business.
Yeah.
You have some parameters. Somebody trusts in you more than you trust in yourself at that moment. And you go. And I really think those kinds of stories and really set the groundwork in addition to the community sense of pride in the community and make sure that it is more about we and less about me.
So have you had a lot of clients that resembled that bull over the years?
What a great question.
It just came to me.
I love it. You know what? I think I've had a lot of bulls and cows that resemble the fact that, they look strong, they are strong, and they're looking for a partner or a client that really gets them and will be there and have their back, so to speak, and can do the things that they shouldn't be doing or can't do, and really having their best interests in mind. So I would say from that standpoint, there are many. And I think that is what we learn over the time, Julie, right? You put on your pants and you pull up, we go on the big girl pants, and then we go out and we make it happen. And I couldn't be more proud of all the people that have helped make it happen. And to this day.
So what year did you found the company? I don't remember.
Oh, in 1988, I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, you learned those lessons so early as a kid. I mean, why not found a company when you're 5?
Yeah, well, and really, yeah, that's right. And it started and continues to be really working with those who are in the people business, I call it. So schools, we do a lot of work with schools all over the country. And it is about communications. They say, is it marketing? Many schools will say we don't market, although the tide has changed because we have to now. It is not a choice. You have to tell your story in a way that others can hear and understand, and what differentiates you. We work with a lot of public schools. We've worked with some private schools, and we worked with some charter schools. And at the end of the day, it's really about people are wanting to service kids and families and have the best that can be done to help them, especially in our times and on our market. And that continues to be the same. So we work with schools all over the country. I think in the past year, we've worked with 13 different states. In addition, of course, in Minnesota, in the Midwest is where we're founded and continue to be. We work with superintendents, we work with decision makers, and we work with communications. And if they don't have communications within their team, then we become their communications partner all along. But so yeah, love what we do. We have a phenomenal team who understands the people business, whether it's schools, whether it's financial services, whether it's health services, but it's really about or nonprofits, and it's really about the people world and people businesses.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So when we talk about like who your primary clients are, would it be those sectors? You said schools, health, nonprofits, and financial services?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that's not really in order. The schools and education K-12 with some, in addition to some university, and sometimes it's university or K-12 as a whole, sometimes it's a program within.
Sure.
And those are our primary clients that we work with and serve. We talk about what do you need to do to be effective? It's creative, effective, and lasting. As you know, Julie, we've talked about that. It is really the CEL where it's about being passionately committed to a betterment of family, business, and community. And every single client that we work with has really been that and puts their heart and soul into it. And the pandemic was not easy. I've never been so busy as we were over the pandemic to really help people get through, in addition to all of our employees to also get through. And so it's really a gift in many ways, and we evolve and learn, and we do everything from branding. We do a lot of branding work to help people tell their story in a way that makes sense. We do a lot of process. We have a mission ignition process that really, the process is as important as the end result. And we are showing that over and over. As you know, it's your process, right? That makes the difference and helps you do that. And then we do a lot of website and digital. It's the way of the world. And so we have to both use a technical side of a really understanding and the marketing communication side to be able to pull those together. And we've done websites for the largest schools out in California and New York to small schools in Minnesota that have been longtime clients. And so it's a delight. It's a privilege in our view. And our team loves to make those things happen, but it is about how we communicate. Anybody who's looking at that is how are we going to set ourselves apart? How do you tell your story in a short time to be effective? Because you don't want to do branding every 5 years, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, tell me about the PR side of the work that you guys are doing, because I think that that's changed a lot over the years, right? I mean, people aren't reading newspapers as much as they used to. And so let's just speak to that for a minute.
Absolutely. It has changed tremendously. We are at the soul of who we are. We were founded under public relations. Although sometimes I wonder, did I really know? But it was really a public relations. And so we did a lot of media relations. We've still continued to do some events work as well. And so it was all founded. And so we're still that, because in the service business world, if people feel like they're being sold to, they don't necessarily want to be sold to for a service. But if they feel like you're educating, you're informing, you're enlightening, which is really public relations and marketing wrapped together, then that's when it works, and it works well. And that's when you get that return on investment. So we haven't lost our public relations. It's reputation management, which is included in everything that we do. But at the forward thinking, it is that marketing communications that people know. At least they can pigeon you. Oh, I get what you do.
Sure, sure. Well, I think that the reputation management side of things
Mm,
can be super important, especially for specific industries, right? And when
absolutely.
I think a lot of times people think reputation management, oh, that must mean when there's bad news that hits the waves, we got to get out there to somebody to circumvent. But
Right.
no, conversely, when we have good news to share, there's certain strategies that you use, right, to be able to get the word
Ab-
out, and
ab-
maximize the exposure of that. Maybe you've got an illustration that you could share with us on how you go about doing that.
I would love to. And I will tell you that being strategic and proactive for reputation management is critical today
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you don't know when there's going to be crisis. And there are few organizations that make it without any crisis. So to have a plan in place is important. The other place is when you're working in the service industries, whether it's health services or whether it's schools, the more you have trust by your community, the more that they've heard your stories, the more that you are transparent and being able to tell your stories and show, the easier it is to overcome and or be a part of those crises that are bound to happen. There
Hmm.
will be a crisis in people's lives. And so at what point are we prepared? Have we really built trust within our community, whatever that means for your organization? But have we built that trust? And do they know that when we come out to speak, we're going to be as transparent as possible in health services and schools? You've got lots of privacy issues, so you cannot say more. However, if you build the trust when you can talk a lot and talk about all the great things that are happening, it's a lot easier to get through any kinds of crisis.
Hmm.
So reputation management is critical. And
Does that apply then to as much internally as externally when we talk about
great
reputation
question.
management? Yeah,
Absolutely. What you've done to build your internal will
right.
make a difference for your external. Think about social media, and people love it or hate it, or they're somewhere in between. But
Hmm.
it is there. And there are many ways to tell that. Well, the difference is if you have people telling how wonderful you are, Julie, because of what you do and how you've helped them, when there becomes something where it's a little questionable and you're not even sure if it's true, it's a lot easier to then give some information that's accurate and bring that forward. And the beauty is your champions, your people who now internally believe in you, trust in you, are going to be your assets and they're going to speak up. And that's when people listen as
Hmm.
well. So it's absolutely critical for whoever's leading the organizations. The other piece is not to talk too much about crisis management, but if you don't have a crisis policy, I don't care what
Hmm.
organization you're in, you really need to have one because the last thing you want to do is to have a crisis and your team or your staff feels like they're being told to be quiet, and it's not for because of the company, it's most often to save them and also not get them in a place that could be vulnerable and or
Right.
have some liability. So crisis communications plans are critical. The whole proactive approach is really the way to go. Doesn't mean that you don't get exhausted, because I
Hmm.
do think that what we're seeing today is a lot of organizational leaders who are exhausted, over the last few years. And so by having a strategy and a plan
Yeah.
and getting to tell those great stories really gives energy to everybody and
Mhm.
builds that trust. So,
So, like telling a good story, say for instance,
mm,
there's been a major award that one of your clients has won, or
mhm.
they've opened up another location or expanded their services in such a way that is significant, or they acquired a company or were acquired. I imagine you guys get involved in all of that, right? And getting the word out and telling that story.
Yes, we do. We get
Mhm.
it, and it starts internally. To your point, you better
Yes.
tell internally before the rest of the world hears it.
Oh
And
man, I know.
so,
I've had clients where it's like, I didn't even know this was happening. It's like, oh
exit.
boy.
Oops. Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't lend well for the
Exactly.
culture.
No, no. I think
Yeah.
that we're working with a couple of different. I mean, we work with a lot of clients, but the ones that I can keep you you can see and are exciting to see that make it through some challenging times, really keep their values intact. They are very clear who they are. They are very clear what they deliver, and they are very clear on the values. And that means that they're living them internally and they're living it externally. That's a tough call today. Honestly, especially no matter the size of your organization, is really paying attention to your internal communications. And if you're the only one doing it, you need a strong team that is helping you do that. No one can lead that. I don't care if you're a group of 10 people or if you're a group of 30,000 people. You have to have people who have those roles and are your trusted leadership and know how to bring those values. I mean, frankly, I'm going to use Fralene Anderson. We talked a little bit, Dave Benusa and the Fralene Anderson group, who, full disclaimer, we've been working with, but we knew Dave prior to that, right? And they really have created a culture that is very clear when you walk in and very clear over the time. Doesn't mean it's easy, but I do think for an accounting firm, it's very unusual. And so it coming on just as we see in many of the schools, the leadership and the board. But when we go in to do a brand, we just came from starting a branding in a school in Minnesota. And I think their population of students is about 3,000, which is a smaller school. But boy, when we walked in to do the branding process, you knew where they stood. You had that camaraderie. And then the question is, are you staying so that you're welcoming to people who didn't grow up here or don't know about you? Because it's easy when you have a team that grew up or knew it. But what about now making sure you're welcoming the people that maybe didn't grow up here, maybe have different backgrounds? And so how do you make sure that you are doing those same welcoming?
That's a really good point. There are several things that come to mind that we don't have time for right now, but I've experienced in my life, where if you're not part of that circle, it's just like an unsaid kind of mindset, which is really too bad because I think that it scares people away. So I'm really glad that you're doing that work, because for kids especially, they've got to be feeling like they're welcome, right? And that they belong. I mean, right out of the gate, because that's a huge thing for life.
Yes, I get goosebumps because one of the things that I'd love to share is that this intergenerational, we're very significantly intent on making sure we're intergenerational. And I'm going to share a story that just came from why I believe that. We had a group that came in for the branding session. It's a public entity, and there was a young boy, I think he might have been sixth grade, who came because he said, I read about that you were going to be talking branding. And so the person who was running from the organization said, what should we do? And I said, we need to bring him in. Hey, let him come on in. Yeah. It was awesome. And I will tell you, he was so articulate, so clear, and he was fairly new to the school. So he brought that outside and he spoke up, and someone asked him if they'd be on one of the big committees or on the board shortly. And
as a sixth grader, isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is. And I thought, we need those perspectives.
Yes.
And if we're not listening, we miss it. And if we're not following through, we miss it. And that's really what I believe part of our mission and our purpose is to help you make sure that we're looking at whatever drives your company and your organization, but also how are we hearing all the voices, and do we have that intergenerational perspective? And if we don't, we're missing great opportunities from my view and from what we've seen over and over. Return on investment. Anytime we make sure that happens, the return on investment, it's probably cut in half of the time that it would take if we did not do that.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much that we could unpack there and talk about, but we're almost out of time. So we'll just have to continue the conversation another day. But I would like to ask, maybe real quick, 2 tips for our listeners who are business owners and considering a future exit, whatever that looks like, whether it's internal or external, what are a couple things that you would recommend that they do in order to prepare for that future transition from a marketing and communications perspective?
Happy to do that. Thanks, Julie, for that question. I think and I'll give examples where we've actually been brought in because they know that that exit was going to happen. And one is to look and see, are you current? Does that mean, when you look at what you're saying and what you say you deliver, is it transparent and is that honest? And if it isn't, you need to gather up some holes. And that's one of the things we do audits all the time in terms of communications and marketing audits for that purpose. If we don't need to do an audit, the people team who is looking at exiting, then we can go through that and identify, here's what you can do. So for example, maybe they don't need to be more transparent, but they really aren't known. And so how do we get them some of that PR that can help them? Maybe there's internal issues that have been unresolved, and how can we help with that communications and transparency? How do you help move that forward? So there's some very specifics, and sometimes it is an audit because what they think and what maybe a broker or someone who's helping them in exit planning says, this doesn't seem, it's not transparent. It's not as clear as you think it is, because as owners, we always think it's pretty clear, don't we?
Oh yeah, we need somebody from the outside for sure. Yeah, well, that's the foot forward, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, if you're planning to sell your business, especially externally, it's really important that the image that you have out there in the world is, like you said, transparent and accurate. And so many times I've seen websites that are so outdated, and it's like, gosh, this isn't even the message anymore. We need to get this fixed, right? So
exactly. And Julie, on that note, one of the things to say is if it is not accessible, especially if you're in public education or education of any kind, especially if you're in finance, any kind of finance, I mean, it's going to get cracked down on more on accessibility. So if you're doing digital or you're doing, anything, it's the right thing to do is making sure it's accessible. The crackdown on what that's been over the last 5 years has cost a lot of organizations hundreds and thousands of dollars because they weren't accessible, and it's an easy fix.
I heard about that. I also heard that there's certain law firms that are out there looking at websites and trying to get people into trouble for not being accessible. So we want to be careful, right? All those listeners out there with their websites that aren't accessible, make sure you contact CEL and get that done. And we will have your contact information in the show notes, and we'll be tagging you on social media so people can find you. Cindy, so much. Thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your wisdom. Very fun.
Thank you, Julie. And congratulations to you too, and all those awards I've seen. And moving it forward, moving this entity forward, and what's happening with transitions. It's not an easy deal. Yeah. So we know where to find you.
Awesome. Thanks, Cindy. We'll talk
soon.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay.